One of the best ways to get gigs when you're breaking into a new scene is to go sit in. But what's the etiquette around sitting in? And I've been confronted with that recently, not necessarily because I'm sitting in per se, but also I want to get other people to sit in. And I'm still trying to figure out what the norms are around that. And so take what I say not as gospel, but just food for thought. Because again, I think it's really different in every situation. Here in Nashville, I talk a lot about playing on Broadway. And Broadway, Lower Broadway is a strip where there's all the honky tonks are, where there's music pretty much from 10 a.m. until 2 to 3 a.m., 365 days a week. So there's always gigs going on. And people are playing shifts, which are 4 hours. So people are always eager to have someone play a few songs to give them a break. But recently, I've had a couple experiences where I've been trying to get people to sit in because I want to help them out, and I wasn't sure how to approach that. And here's some things I've learned, or food for thought, which I haven't really thought about. So I've tried to have a few of my guitar buddies come in and sit in and play. And the guitarists are asking me, do I need to bring my pedal board? Should I bring my guitar? Should I bring my amp? Because I think some of us assume that if we go in and use someone else's equipment, it's almost like we're being presumptuous. We're disrespecting that person. But I also had another guitar player say, "Hey man, next time your buddy comes to sit in and play, just tell him he can use my guitar and my amp." I said, "Oh, okay. Why is that?" And he's like, "Well, I mean, when I first came to town and I was sitting in, I would take my guitar down, and some people told me, you can just play my guitar next time." And I don't know if it's a logistical thing where they just don't want more like kind of transitions and we're trying to keep a set going, or maybe it's like an ego thing where someone comes down with a super nice guitar and shows up someone else's guitar. I don't know. Guitarists are a different breed. And so with me as a drummer, I've sat in several times with several people. And if I know the people, it's usually much, much more chill. If I don't know the person, like the drummer who's playing, and somebody else in the band asks me to sit in, I I'm always a little bit unsure to how to go about that. Like if I show up at some other drummer's gig with a stick bag and I'm watching, I don't know if I would like that as a drummer. Not like I would have a problem, but I'm like, what's this person for? Am I being replaced? Um, but I also don't want to like pick up someone else's sticks and just assume. Um, and I've had experiences go both ways. I've gone and sat in, and the drummer's like, "What? You don't have sticks?" And he was very particular and specific about, "Yo, man, you need to have your sticks." And he also like, I went to slightly adjust the snare, and he came in and 86 that he threw a flag and said, "No way, no dice." And that was that drummer, and that was, what? It's his gig and it's his right. I've had other drummers be like, "Oh yeah, man, just play as long as you want. I'm gonna go have a couple beers," and they didn't care, and they're like, "Yeah, all my sticks are there. You can do whatever you want." And I've had it go both ways. So what I'm trying to communicate is that there are no real hard and fasts, at least in my experience. And I think this varies so greatly from the city you're in, the scene you're trying to break in, who you know. I also had another drummer want to sit in on my gig, and I actually invited him down because I really wanted to help him out. Seems like a really cool, sweet, nice guy. And I know what it's like trying to break into a scene and just feeling like you can't even get your foot in the door. So I said, "Hey, if you're on Broadway, why don't you stop by my gig? Say hey." And I asked the artist I was playing with if I could have another drummer sit in. And the artist kind of, this artist likes to keep things moving. It was just like, "Oh, no, 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 no." And I can't say the artist is right or wrong. Well, I can say they are right because you know what? It's their gig. Um, and some artists are only comfortable with certain people and they don't like having variables come into the equation to throw things off. Some people are really cool and chill and laid back, be like, "Yeah, man, whatever." And I'm not saying anything is right or wrong, but I felt bad to the other drummer because I kind of felt like I set him up to be like, oops, yeah, I was just kidding. Uh, and I'm just using this to highlight that, yeah, I guess there's no hard and fasts. And it's really important for you to know the situation. And I've also had I've had some new friends coming to town, and I wanted to get them to sit in. Actually, a buddy of mine, he's a steel guitar player, and he plays left-handed, so it's pretty hard for him to sit in on a gig, right? Like, no one's gonna play a steel guitar, pedal steel, left-handed, and those things are massive to haul around. So how does he get gigs? It's a tricky situation. And I was gonna tell him, hey, why don't you just like bring your like maybe you'll play a shift with me for free. And I hate suggesting that because I don't think anybody should play for free. But he's a guy that seems really eager and he's a go-getter. But then also, do I just like tell someone else on the gig, hey, I'm having my buddy come in and play? No, because it's not my gig. So here's one thing, I guess what I'm saying is that there are just so many variables and there aren't any hard and fast rules. Every scene's going to be a little bit different. I guess at the baseline, one thing I think that always works is showing your face. And if someone asks you to play, cool. If if you're just there and nobody asks you to play, cool. Talk to somebody after the gig. Just be around. If you're around the situation, if people see your face, they're much more likely to say, hey, oh, do you want to come sit in? Even if you have to go like 2 or 3 gigs. They know that, oh, this person is serious about playing music. Maybe I should give them a shot. And maybe you never get asked to sit in that way. But I find that if you go in and get some FaceTime, actual FaceTime, it means a lot. And it shows people you're serious about playing. And I think sometimes if you go and show your face to somebody with no expectations, that's the best approach. If you're expecting to sit in and no one asks you to sit in, sometimes it can feel like a failure or a bummer. And it's not. It's like you went and heard some music, you saw the way people were making music, you gain something from that. And yeah, it can be kind of frustrating and it can be like navigating a maze. And I still say that both when I'm sitting in or having somebody sit in either on drums or on another instrument. So I guess my best advice is let's just be prepared for anything and try to create as little waves as possible. But also don't be afraid to say hi to somebody. Be prepared to spend some time there and not play, and that's okay. It's not a loss. And sometimes it takes a few cracks. It takes a few different people, knowing a few different people. But knowing people can never lead you wrong. And going there and not really creating waves can never go wrong. Now, you can be a little bit too passive, but I say give yourself 1 or 2 times of seeing somebody and just sitting down there and checking things out. So I'll close with this. A good buddy of mine here in town, he's a guitarist. I met him because I would say maybe last year I was still newer to town. I believe it was Easter Sunday. We were looking for a last-minute guitarist, lead guitarist for a gig. We couldn't find one, so we ended up doing it as acoustic and bass and drums, and we earned our paycheck that day. But he messaged me, this guitarist who messaged me to sub the gig. He's like, hey, I'm sorry I missed the call for this, but I'm interested in playing that era. It was, 70s, 80s, 90s country music. He says, I'm interested in that kind of music. I would love to come see you play sometime. And I was still so new to town and I still feel like I connect to these people that, oh, I know what it's like when you're just trying to get a shot and you're trying to break in. And here in Nashville, it still happens that someone says, hey, I'm looking for a drummer. I message them. They don't even open the message or read it. And it kind of feels dismissive, but, I don't take it personally. But I was like, I don't want anyone else to feel dismissed if they're serious about music. So I said, hey, man, well, we usually play at this time. Here's our regular gig. Come check us out. And sure enough, he came the next day. And he sat and watched the whole gig, like 4 hours of it. And I think the next week he came to the gig and we had him sit in. And you could definitely tell he was nervous, and I was rooting for him. And when he played that first time, I was like, okay, it wasn't bad, it wasn't great, but he's playing on someone else's guitar, someone else's setup, and he was nervous. Because he's a guitarist, and the guitarist we had on the gig is an absolute monster, like total crazy monster. But so my buddy who sat in, he came another couple times. Like I think he sat in like 3 or 4 gigs, and he sat there for the whole shift. Long story short, my buddy right now is working his ass off. Everyone loves him in town, and I can say that he's one of my favorite people and one of my favorite musicians to play with. He's a great dude. He inspires me musically. And that first time or two when he was playing, I didn't hear that from him. Not because he didn't have it, but just because, oh, it's very much a feeling out process and he's playing on someone else's gear. But the thing that stood out to me was that, oh, this guy was serious about it and he is willing to just sit in a honky tonk for 4 hours and watch. And right now he's absolutely one of my favorite musicians to play with, and I was just talking with him the other day about how he and I need to start some kind of band or project together so we can play together more, because every time I play with him, I'm just over the moon because I love playing with him and I love hearing him be himself. And it's because, I took a chance on somebody. And it's like I really wasn't even taking a chance. I was just like, well, if you want to sit in or if you want to check us out, we're playing here. And he was the one that really took a chance. So that's how the cookie crumbles. There's no really one right or wrong way. And perhaps you have another point of view and it could absolutely be valid. But I'm just sharing my experiences, and I think this is really what the music industry is like. Everyone kind of operates by a different set of rules and boundaries. And I guess the point I'm making is that if you kind of show up and you feel out where other people's boundaries are, kind of get an idea before you tap your toes in the water, I think it sets you up for success. So just be patient, and you might have to show your face a couple times, and you'll probably get a chance to sit in. So if you like what I'm saying, if you find what I'm saying helpful or useful, it really helps me to keep creating this content. If you like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of jazz. Or hell, man, come out to a gig. I would love to try to find a way to have you sit in. Thanks for watching.